Hello, everybody. This is going to be my 20 time project that I did. So I started off with the question, like, what was I going to do? So I first contemplated doing like cooking recipes. And my second thing was to learn how to juggle. And third was to learn how to sew. I ended up going with idea one right here. So I wanted to learn how to make the perfect pizza, and that idea kind of eventually evolved. So it started as wanting to just learn how to cook, and then let's make a perfect healthy pizza. And my questions were these right here. So, how many pizzas was I going to cook? Was I going to look online for a recipe? Was I going to look in a book that I have? What ingredients do I need? Um, how was I going to like look at the pizzas like and compare them against each other? How do I know if it's going to be healthy? What kind of dough and crust am I going to use? What's going to be on there? And what were some common mistakes that people made when they make their pizzas? So my next section was my first update, where I wanted to do a bunch of research on making pizzas and healthy pizzas and things like that. So I answered these questions. So, what meals did I want to cook? So, I wanted to make a perfect healthy pizza and then compare the two pizzas. So, a regular pizza versus a healthy pizza. Is it really worth it, you know? So, I wanted to see, do I already have a cookbook that had pizzas in it? And I had these two books right here. So I had Snoop Dogg's cookbook and then Tasty Adulting. So Snoop Dogg's cookbook is just a bunch of recipes thrown in a book that apparently that he likes. And then Tasty Adulting is like things like spaghetti, pizza, cliche recipes that are very common that most people have eaten, especially as when they were a kid, and just kind of making them adult and healthy. So my goal was to make something that not only tastes good, but that was also healthy and good for you. So I went over and looked at some common mistakes that people made in their pizzas. And then I also linked a video talking about different mistakes that people made. So the most common pizza mistake was that people didn't chill their dough or give it enough time to rise. And those were two things that I made sure to do when I made mine. So my next update talked about I continued to research my pizzas and I went through those books and actually picked two recipes that I'm like, okay, I'm going to use these for my pizzas. But since this was a class where we wanted to learn something, I didn't want to just follow a recipe. So I ended up just picking those two recipes as references and I was going to kind of use those as inspirations for my own recipes. So these were the recipes straight out of the book, or at least the ingredients that they needed. How many pizzas did I want to compare? I wanted to choose one healthy pizza and then one regular pizza, and then see and compare them against each other. So the healthy pizza came from the Tasty Adulting, and the regular pizza came from Snoop Dogg's. I ended up choosing not to do anything that had a yeasted dough. Just didn't want to have to deal with making like a sourdough starter or any of that difficulty. Just wanted to try to do something that was simple, but also help me learn a pizza recipe that I could just keep cooking. Then I went shopping for my ingredients. So the most interesting thing about this was that the tasty adulting recipe required Greek yogurt and self-rising flour to make your own dough, while Snoop Dogg's most of the stuff was already like ready made. So you buy a pizza mix, buy a sauce mix, while the tasty adulting you ended up making your own dough and making your own sauce. So these were the new recipes that I ended up writing out. So I had the protein salad pizza and then Snoop Dogg's pizza. My price point, I ended up calculating the price for both pizzas. So Snoop Dogg's pizza was a little bit cheaper, but with what you bought, you really could only make one pizza unless you went and bought another pizza dough. And then at that point, you probably really only have enough for two or three. While the other pizza dough, the healthier pizza, with what you paid 27.36, you could end up making three or four pizzas. You got quite a bit of stuff because you got that whole big bag of flour and then a container of Greek yogurt, so you could just keep making pizzas. These were the instructions. You mix your dough, roll out your dough, preheat your oven, cut up your toppings, and we'll go through some pictures of those instructions in a second. So I cooked the pizzas and documented the process. So on the left here is the pizza dough from the package. On the right is the pizza dough that I made, the one that doesn't look as good. It ended up tasting decent. So follow through the process. So I chose to bake the traditional pizza in a skillet to kind of give it a more crispy taste, and the other one in just a traditional pan. This was another tip right here that I learned how to do. So you flash it real quick. So you throw it in there for 5 minutes and let it cook so that it's nice and firm, and then you throw your toppings on so that you're not pressing the toppings and all the sauce and all that into just a wet dough. So then you throw your cheese on, you throw your pepperoni, and then you throw the rest of the toppings. So they pretty much had a lot of similar toppings because I wanted them to be the same type of a pizza so that when I compare them, it was a little bit easier. There's my finished product of my pizzas, the healthy pizza right here, and the traditional deep dish skillet pizza right here. So I ended up calculating the macros for them. So this was Snoop Dogg's pizza versus the protein pizza. They were both right around the same amount of calories. So Snoop Dogg's was actually a little bit less for the unhealthy pizza. It was a little bit less calories, while the healthier pizza was a little bit more. But I think that's because it had a lot more protein. So the macros were Snoop Dogg's pizza had 168 carbs and 83 grams of protein for 119 grams of fat, which that's quite a bit of fat and not a lot of protein. And the other one over here with 2,063 calories had 210 grams of carbs. So you probably wouldn't want to eat this if you were keto, but it did have 198 grams of protein, over double what the other pizza had, and only 58 grams of fat. So a lot healthier if you were trying to lose some weight. This is the macros by slice. So you cut up the pizzas into 6 slices. You get 28 carbs, 14 grams of protein, and 20 grams of fat for Snoop Dogg's. And then the protein pizza had 35 carbs, 33 grams of protein, and only 10 grams of fat. I ended up, in order to compare and contrast them, I kind of gave them a rating. So a rating of 1 through 5. And then I gave them some notes. So overall, I thought that it was worth it to cook a healthy pizza over cooking the unhealthy one just because of the amount of protein that you got and the less amount of fat. So depending on who you are and what kind of style of activity and all these things, depending on it just depends on what you would want to eat. But I would prefer to eat the healthy one just because it's a little bit healthier. It's got more protein and the ingredients were a little bit better. While the sauce on the healthy pizza was way too spicy, um, everything else was pretty good. The cheese had kind of a weird texture, but it wasn't too bad. The other pizza was a lot oilier, and it was a lot. You just put it together, while the healthy pizza did take quite a bit more. So I gave a little reflection right here. So if I were to change some things, I probably would add a little bit more like salady toppings to the healthier pizza. So maybe some arugula, and then add some actual seasoning into the dough itself because the dough did get a little airy and just kind of flavorless, but it wasn't too bad. And then I would take elements like the Parmesan, throwing Parmesan around the crust to get it nice and crispy, and then cooking it in the cast iron. I think that would help. So if I were to combine the two recipes, I think I could end up making quite a bit better of a pizza. And that's kind of what I learned from my 20 time project. So you kind of want to use some things from this recipe, some things from that recipe, and turn them into the ultimate healthy pizza. So that's kind of my project. I learned that you could make a healthy pizza